My third guy plays some games.
Alright, hi everybody. Weather Guy here. We are back with more great Ace Attorney Chronicles. We are in our second session of Resolve. And we're about to have our witness testimonies and cross-examination and all that. So, see how that goes. I hope you're having a great day. I hope life is treating you amazingly. I hope you had a great February. I hope that you're one of the miracles out there who is keeping up with their New Year's resolutions still all the way into March. But that's all I got. Let's get into it. That's right, we have Hosonaga and we have... Oh no, I forgot the reason why I stopped last time was because I didn't want to do Soseki's voice because it was so loud, but I'll have to manage because my kid was still asleep behind me today. But Hosonaga was pretty normal apart from his disguises, you know? So that's great. He's very dedicated. He has a little bit of gray in his hair this time. I don't know if that's intentional or if it's part of the costume. He also has a turtle on his head. I guess that's part of his beach attire, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he was maybe he was like, not just in disguise, but like camouflage, right? Chief Inspector Satoru Hosonaga, Imperial Police Bureau. I'm in disguise, obviously, so I can go undetected. And what was his voice? And I am, well, the next big thing in books and authors renowned throughout the capital. In fact, yes. Soon to be sold out, the satirical I Am a Cat, a sensational sex by Soseki Natsume. Oh my goodness. Oh. I didn't read the text on the screen. I just said, oh my goodness, on my own, and then sure enough, Sasato says, oh my goodness as well. Fantastic. Struggling student from the provinces, please. You needn't be in awe of me. I needn't? It's only natural that you'd feel nervous in my presence. But all of you, please, relax. Call me Soseki even. Now, again, if for some reason yet you didn't watch the first half of this playthrough, these two characters, especially Soseki, he was one of our defendants in one of the trials in the previous game, so we're quite familiar with him, and Hosonaga was a witness in two of the cases as well. And he's a good guy. They're both good guys. What on earth is Soseki doing here? Tread carefully, Sasato. That author fellow knows you from your time in London, doesn't he? He exposes you for who you really are. This will be over before it's done. You know what's interesting? Hosonaga also should know Sasato, you know? Because she was present in the second case when he was there. Yes, of course, I know. I presume Soseki won't have forgotten about me. I could certainly never forget him. Though he does seem to have changed somewhat in the 6 months or so that it's been since I last saw him. As for Inspector Hosonaga, that amazing outfit is hard to believe. Do I have something on my face? Well, your glasses for one, although they don't seem to be helping you see. Thank goodness he hasn't recognized me either. Yeah, there we go. I suppose it's this disguise, is it? I thought that appearing here in the clothes I was wearing at the time would make for a more faithful testimony. It's my guiding principle to carry out all testimonies flawlessly. What a great guy. Before, he was disguised as both a waiter and as a sailor, a Russian sailor specifically. Well, I can appreciate why an Imperial Police Bureau detective might have been present. What business did a writer such as yourself have being at the scene, Soseki? Ah, well, you see, I had been asked that day to give a lecture on the morning of the incident in the Imperial Yume University's Grand Lecture Hall, no less. At Yume University? After the lecture, I had a very pleasant conversation with a researcher from the Medical Science Department. A professor over there, in fact. Oh, so he talked to Mikitoba. Yes, that's right. It was arranged by one of the newspapers. They wanted some story or other about two former students who'd studied in Great Britain. Of course, being a renowned author, the press never leave me alone. They secretly spy snapshots, scribble stories, and scupper my privacy. That's his thing, you know. He goes into these trios of things that are very dramatic and staccatoed, right? As you can see, the conversation was written up in this newspaper here. Read it at your leisure, my provincial struggling student friend. I have plenty of copies. Thank you very much. You practically threw that paper at me. Second Natsume article has been entered into the court record. Great. Anyway, following my interview with the professor, let's look at the court records real quick while we have a second. So we already looked at the post-mortem report last time. We haven't really looked at the crime scene photograph very extensively, I don't think. Yeah, we did actually look at this a bit. We just can't, there's nothing more to see right now as far as like clicking on something, which is usually the case with photographs, but with newspapers, sometimes you can click on certain aspects of it. See, like here, it's not letting us, usually there might be a dialogue or something, but we're just looking at a newspaper. There doesn't seem to be any additional info. There's a cat, that's kind of interesting. But besides that, it seems like they're just having a chill time. You know? Yeah. Okay. The lady in question appeared and made a very unexpected announcement. I should like to go with everyone to see our country's coast. Those were her words. As I explained before, Miss Brett was never taken into custody. She continued to work in my laboratory under strict surveillance, of course. At which utterance, the university immediately contacted the government to seek guidance. And the response was, permit Miss Brett to go as long as a detective accompanies her. That detective, I am at liberty to divulge, was me, Chief Inspector Satoru Hosonaga. Thereby, the entire party departed cordially for the seaside, it seems. It was extremely challenging to clear all of the members of the public from the vicinity of the beach. Oh, wow, this is one of the mysteries I forgot about from the first game. Hosonaga has a cough, and it's never quite explained why, but it got to the point where he would bleed from like his mouth a couple times, I believe. So I wonder if that mystery will ever be resolved, and I wonder if there's actually any sort of significance to that. I guess we'll see. Unfortunately, I am at peak physical fitness at the moment, so I was able to carry out my duty flawlessly. There's the blood, like I mentioned. Look at that, up the side of his mouth. Oh my, Inspector, well, you do have something on your face now. Ah, how unsightly. I do apologize. Does that mean you went to the beach too, Father? Oh, wrong voice. Sorry, that was her voice. No, fortunately I had work to finish off. But unfortunately, of course, it meant that as my assistant Ray was invited to take my place. Of course, being a renowned author, I didn't like to decline the invitation. But if only I had, I'd never seen that awful sight. Relentlessly racked by remorse and regret. He's seen 2 murders now. I love this guy in the background. I wonder if he's relevant at all. His like fan that takes photos and apparently notes very frantically. With a purple ink smudge on his hand, even though he's writing with not a purple pen. That's interesting. Very well, I must now ask you to present your formal testimony to the court. You will give an account of all that you witnessed on your impromptu excursion to the coast. Here we go. We get into the witness statements now? Of course, Your Excellency. Relentlessly racked by remorse and regret, I am. Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, testimony time. On the day of the incident, I was ordered on a special surveillance assignment in this disguise. I had just managed to catch that crab when I suddenly heard a caterwaul from behind me. I don't know what a caterwaul is. I'm assuming it's another word for like a cacophony, right? Like a loud noise or something. I ran into the beach hut at once, where I found the pair in question. Yes, that young girl was astride the Englishwoman, dagger in hand, as she stabbed wildly. No, seems unlikely. There's a reason why I say that seems unlikely. Is because stabbing wildly, that isn't really consistent with seeing one stab wound, right? At the same time, I don't really think Soseki would be lying intentionally or with malicious intent. Maybe he is trying to talk things up and make things more exciting because he's an author now. Or maybe he's just mistaken, I don't know. Saw blood on the blade. It proved to me that she'd stabbed the victim multiple times. Hang on. Both saying that. Dude, I'm so sorry. I just had peanuts. And it's like not just regular peanuts, it's like peanuts with the shell from Texas Roadhouse. And I've been cracking them open and eating them. So look at this single deep stab wound. That's what I thought. Interesting. But they both said it. That's curious. That's an easy thing for us to present against, right? Which I guess makes sense because this is sort of the tutorial case for this game. Indeed, it does appear from the testimony that both witnesses here present saw it. The very moment of this heinous crime. What? Now, if you will recall, I promised evidence as well. What phrase did I use again? Ah, yes, that was it. Damning evidence. It's a pin. What have you there, counsel? A so-called fountain pen, is it? Oh my god. I know who did the murder. Easiest case in the world. There's never been an easier case. It's Soseki's photographer guy that's behind him. You know? That's why he has the pin. That's why they gave him an ink stain on his hand, because that's his pin. You know? Why he did it, I don't know yet, but it's definitely him. Easy. Correct, Your Excellency. I found it at the scene whilst examining the body. It appears that in her dying moments, with her final ounce of strength, the victim clutched a piece of evidence that would positively identify her killer. What? Your Excellency, if you would cast your eyes over the photographic print of the crime scene once more. Oh, goodness me. Wrong voice. There's the pen. Yes, the victim is clearly grasping something quite deliberately there in her hand. That's right, the fountain pen. And if you would kindly examine the pin, Your Excellency. Ah! The owner's initials have been engraved into the ebonite barrel. R.M. Ray Mimbani. Mimbami. 1,000,000 to 1. I don't know what I'm saying as far as odds go. 10 to 1. Like 9 out of 10 times. Let's just say that. That's easier to say. And it's easier for me to understand what I'm actually saying. 9 out of 10 times, that's also going to be the photographer's initials, I bet. I bet. The initials of the defendant. Ah, no. Classic. This fountain pen will be admitted immediately as critical evidence. Alright, great. Great. So, have I omitted anything? Let's look at this fountain pen before we forget. We can't examine it, curious. I figured we'd at least be able to open it, because I bet we would see a purple color. Decisive testimony and damning evidence. There's a bright blue sky outside the courthouse today. Perfect weather to ascribe guilt, I feel. I don't understand. Prosecutor Ouchie 9 months ago had none of this man's poise. Counsel for the defense, you may begin your cross-examination now. Let's get him. That's us. That means... Oh, yes, me. Is there another Naruto in my courtroom? Actually, there isn't even a single one. Cousin Ryutaro, pull yourself together, please. Alright, I've seen this countless times as a judicial assistant. Find inconsistencies in the witnesses' testimonies to prove that they're lying somehow. That's all there is to it. That's how a real lawyer would handle a cross-examination. So let's see what I can do. Great. So they're not tutorializing this, it looks like. Maybe it's because it's part of the two-parter. So first we press on this to get more testimony. Isn't that jaunty disguise? Correct. Oh, wait, no. I mean, it wasn't the first time I've worn the swimsuit for a dip in the ocean. It's tried and tested. Do what must be done to keep the Englishwoman under surveillance. Those were my orders that day. This tried and tested outfit was the answer? Being able to blend flawlessly into a crowd is an important part of a detective's job. Come on. Come on. I submerged myself in the salty water, leaving only Mr. Turtle floating inconspicuously on the surface. Mr. Turtle loves the water. Hilarious. Dude, it looks like... I feel like Mitsutoba's trying not to laugh. There's no need for you to blend into the background on this assignment, really, was there? Mikotoba, sorry, I think I said his name wrong. If that made you late arriving on the scene, I think perhaps you had your priorities wrong. Dude, the turtle's frowning too, look at that. Perhaps I shouldn't pursue this line of questioning any further at the moment. Press on that. Ah, you're describing the victim's scream, presumably, Soseki. In more literary terms, you might say it was a scream that could have pierced the heavens. Great, I'm not screaming. Or the like. Of course, that's just a metaphor. We renowned authors are wont to describing things so. Soseki wasn't at all like this in England. Anyway, I spun around at the noise and the beach hut immediately fell under my gaze. Yes, the beach hut. The area is popular with government ministers. Many have seaside retreats there for rest and recuperation. Locals are prohibited from entering the area, so it's always very quiet. The beach hut is a simple structure erected as a place for people to change or take refuge from the sun. Great. Fantastic. Although the Englishwoman commandeered the hut for herself, which meant that I was forced to change into my swimwear on the sand. Oh, I imagine that was rather embarrassing for you. Well, anyway, I tossed the crab aside and headed for the beach hut at a run. Or, in more literary terms, I grabbed and beat it off hut-wise. Great. Adorable. Press. Wait, by pair, you don't mean to say... How could that be? No, you misunderstand. Obviously, I mean the victim and the defendant. Oh, it would have been helpful if you could have just said that from the outset. You jump to conclusions, you have to expect to fall flat on your face sometimes. Hear me, pinning your hopes on such an outside chance. Foolish. Very foolish. It really was an outside chance. I just wish I'd realized that before I said something silly. So, Inspector, why don't you tell the court how exactly you found the aforementioned pair in the hut? Well, it was a sorry sight. A really grisly scene. I parted the Norn curtain hanging in the doorway and stepped inside, only to see the defendant leaning menacingly over the lifeless body of the victim sprawled on the sand. Okay. My glasses very nearly cracked at the ominous sight that met my eyes. How thoroughly appalling. Oh, he doesn't appear to be lying here. Well, Soseki, can you confirm what Inspector Hosonaga is saying, I wonder? You'd like a literary man's opinion. Alright, we'll continue on this. Yeah. We're gonna press this. Now we're gonna press everything and it's gonna make us have to loop back around, but we'll present on our second time through. Is that Wiley? You actually saw her do it? Oh, indeed. The terrible inspector, the terrible inspector, the bloody torrent, the author's torment. Great. Every sentence, every sound is still carved in my melancholy memory. That was my impression, at least as a future literary sensation. Counsel, what on earth was that shrill, effeminate scream? Oh, no, what are you insinuating? I'm as manly as Japanese man as you. I wonder if I might interject here, Soseki. Something you said is troubling me. That was my impression, were your words just now, I believe. Ah, so do you mean to say you're not confident that you really did see what you've described? I love his mannerisms, look at this. No, I mean yes. I mean, I know what I saw. My ears didn't deceive me when I heard that scream, hence my eyes didn't deceive me either. I could describe everything I saw vividly. I could publish it all in tomorrow's newspaper serial. Right. Undoubtedly, right? It sounds as though the next installment of I Am a Cat may take a macabre turn. I think this is a fool's errand. The more we press your author friend on what he saw, the more entrenched he's going to become. Oh dear, how awkward. I saw blood on the blade, but she stabbed multiple times. Yep, press. This is something that's obviously wrong. She stabbed multiple times. How can you be sure of that? Very simply, from the blood on the blade. Blood? When I entered the hut, I saw the defendant holding the blade raised up in the air. That's it. Look. The knife was stabbed into the body. She walked in, grabbed the knife out, right? And that's why blood was already in there on the knife. She was holding it, right? And so that's the motion that Hosonaga saw, and he assumed that it was part of a continuous stabbing going on. Oh. And I noted that there was blood on the blade already at that point. In other words, the victim had already been stabbed at least once by the victim by the time I arrived on the scene. Yes, that's right. I saw it too. The victim was already holding the defendant's fountain pen in her hand too. All of which means I can be sure the victim did not die instantly. Yes, right, I saw it too. Maybe a year in London was too much for him. Sounds like he's forgotten how to speak Japanese. The logic of your argument is sound, at least. Well, as I said, it is my guiding principle to carry out all testimonies flawlessly. Perhaps it should have been your guiding principle to protect the victim flawlessly. That's just my personal opinion, of course. Wow, the sass. Lots of coughs. Counsel, you will refrain from mocking the witness. Sure. Oh no, I just have so many thoughts whirling around in my head. It's all I can do to stand here, wide-eyed and mute. Goodness, my dear, you really must try to calm down. But how am I supposed to find an inconsistency in what these two gentlemen are saying? I don't see why either of them would have any reason to lie. What you must remember, I think, is that witnesses may inadvertently lie at times. For various reasons, a misunderstanding, a mistaken observation, a delusion, even. Ah, delusion. What's important is that we determine the truth, and there's only one sure way to do that. Yes, with evidence, of course. Yeah, we all know this. Spoken like a true judicial assistant. During witness testimony, you can use R or B to pick a piece of evidence to present for consideration. And you listen carefully to each statement and compare what's said to the details in the court record. If you find some conflicting information, that may be the inconsistency you're looking for. Yes, it's all about inconsistencies. Once you've identified a witness's statement that appears to conflict with a piece of evidence, present the evidence to the witness with why, and the way ahead will present itself to you, I'm sure. Yes, alright then. I'll consider the details of all the evidence in the court record against each statement to find an inconsistency. Okay, we know what's going on. Right? You all know what's going on. I know what's going on. We're just trying to get there, you know? Don't forget that you can have the witnesses repeat their statements as many times as you like. Everyone has to start at the beginning, remember. Those wide eyes are quite forgivable. Besides, there's no one else to defend the poor girl. You're right, I need to listen to the testimony again from the start. Alright, here we go. Now it's present time. Don't need to present on this. Don't need to present on that. I think we present on just this. I think we present on this one first. This one's most obviously wrong, right?
Objection!
Lovely. Our first objection and resolve. Feels great. That accusatory cry that just welled up from deep inside me, I think I finally understand. Every time Kazuma and Ryu have stood here at this bench. Stakes have been very, very high indeed. Well, what's the meaning of that menacing pose, Counsel? I'd like the witness to clarify something for me. Look at it. It's so obvious the ink on his hand. Who, what, where, when, how? Not you, Soseki. This query is directed at Inspector Hosonaga. At me? In your statement just now, you said that the victim was stabbed multiple times. Yes, that's right. As I said when I entered the hut, the defendant was already standing over the victim, bloody knife in hand, like a murderous demon. And yet, that cannot be. What? Get to the point, please, Counsel. In the post-mortem report, it clearly states that the victim was stabbed one time only. Easy. In other words, Inspector Hosanaga's testimony is clearly flawed. And Soseki, me? You claim to have seen Minbami in the throes of stabbing the victim. Yes, I did. Wildly. But both you and the inspector confirmed the same point, that there was already blood on the knife that you saw the defendant holding. Yes, and? It's quite simple. We know the murder weapon was used to stab the victim only once. Therefore, there's no way there could have been blood on the knife if that single stabbing hadn't already occurred. Then what exactly is your contention, Counsel? Are you ever going to tell us? Yes, Your Excellency. There's only one logical conclusion. What Soseki in fact saw was not the moment that the defendant stabbed the victim at all, but the moment that the defendant in fact withdrew the blade from the victim's body. Exactly, we called it immediately. B. Great, love it. Excellent work, Susato. You exploded at them without objection and then proceeded to pull the report systematically. Objection! Oh no. This guy's no Van Deeks. He's not going to give us too much trouble. Well, this takes me back. Yes, I seem to remember your cousin staged a scene much like this in that trial 9 months ago. A half-witted child with a half-baked objection, attempting to steal the show. You're right, there were certain similarities. Except that so-called half-witted child managed to outwit the prosecution, who has only half a head of hair. Slander! My head is quite adequately dressed. In any case, all this talk of stabbing and withdrawing and multiple wounds, it makes not a jot of difference. What? Why not? Engage your brain, young man. When the accused first plunged the deadly weapon into the victim, that was a fatal blow. And it was that moment, just as she had withdrawn the blade ready for her next strike, that the witnesses saw. The knife was already tainted with blood because the accused had already stabbed the victim. All you have successfully shown with your little display is that the mustached author is prone to moments of extravagance. Ugh. Boo, hiss, boo, hiss. I am in agreement with the prosecution. If the defendant was seen wielding the blade at all, that is sufficient grounds for her actions to be viewed with suspicion. But if she was withdrawing the blade, then we are back where we started. Sorry? Consider this, young yokel boy. If the student girl is innocent as you claim, then why would she have pulled the blade from the victim? And with a demon's cold blood composure too? The prosecution demands an explanation, and it better be good. Why did Ray pull out the knife? Oh yes, going for the jugular. What does father mean by that? Let the court hear your answer then, counsel. Truth is, I don't really know. I have to come up with a plausible reason here, or we don't have a case. Okay. Should be easy, right? I don't know why, but one of these. Save her life. According to the post-mortem report, the victim's death was not instant. That's correct. It's thought she would have remained conscious for a short while after sustaining the injury. Indeed, giving her the time to take hold of this piece of evidence that clearly indicates her killer. The point is, being a medical research assistant, Minbami was compelled to act when faced with the wounded victim. Instinctively, she pulled the blade out in an attempt to save Miss Brett's life. Did you hear that, Your Excellency? It would seem this is the best we can expect of this young yokel. Indeed. Is it just me, or does it suddenly feel much colder in here? Your Excellency, if I may. Speak, witness. I would like another opportunity to testify. In respect to the slipshod assertion just put forward by the Yokel Defense Council, I mean. It's a slipshod? An excellent idea, Inspector. Our young yokel hopeful has a modicum of knowledge when it comes to the law, it seems. Alright, Ouchie. But in matters of medicine, he appears to possess not one iota of common sense. Very well, Inspector. I will permit your request. You will testify again before the court on the subject of the Defense Counsel's assertion. Yes, sir. I will do so flawlessly. Great, we have another testimony here. Forensic Medicine Primer. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. That's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor. Wow, it's tough to argue against any of that. Is what you just said true, Inspector? Could pulling a knife from a wound really cause the wound to bleed heavily? Yes, think of the weapon itself as a stopper in the wound that presents excessive blood loss. Until the doctor is ready to provide proper treatment, that stopper shouldn't be removed. Oh, I see. This is why yokels should stay on the farm. Even a quack from some obscure mountain village would have such basic knowledge. Anyone who's ever given someone a little poke with a knife and pulled it out again knows it. How often does that come? Oh, well, I've never stabbed anyone, you see, or pulled a blade out of a wound, so... Of course you haven't. I didn't bring you up to behave like a bandit. Father, is it true what they're telling me? Yes, it's basic remedial knowledge for medics. Ray would have been well aware of it. If she were to claim ignorance of such fundamentals, that would prove fatal in many ways. Then, why would Ray have done it? Could she have pulled out that knife in full knowledge that it would be fatal for Miss Brett? I don't know. Oh no. Ray never once mentioned anything about the knife to me. Seems almost impossible to believe, but... Could my friend actually have... Sasato. Yes? Pull yourself together. Yeah, we can't doubt our defendant. We mustn't lose sight of why we're here. Yeah. Counsel, it's time for your cross-examination. Oh, yes, Your Excellency. However, I must warn you that if your cross-examination fails to identify any issue with the established facts, I will be moving to my adjudication immediately afterwards. Way different here than in Britain, where you have to deal with the jury and stuff. It seems more final, right? Believing in your clients and fighting for their cause until the bitter end. I knew it would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard. We're gonna give it our best, though. Another round of cross-examination right quick. Alright, we're gonna press. Press. You say doing it without thinking could be a problem. Does that mean that if you use due care and attention it would be alright? I wouldn't have thought this needed spelling out, really, but the blade is like a stopper in the wound. Remove it, and a serious hemorrhage will occur. In other words, a medic would need to be present before any attempt was made to withdraw the blade. She is a medic, isn't it? She basically. Doing it without thinking would be madness. You just can't do it. Oh, well, thank you for such a thorough explanation. Let me look at my court record again real quick. Again, there doesn't seem to be anything relevant here. Right? I don't know. I mean, it's going to be relevant at some point. It has to be, but I'm curious about it. Okay. Just looking at everybody showing up, seeing if our photographer with the ink stain was here, but he's not here yet. You see, Counsel, when you act without thinking, the result is a bloodbath. Back to the witness testimony, please. Press.
Hold it!
In that case, there's an obvious explanation here. Which is... Clearly, the defendant, Ray Membami, does not possess an ounce of sense. Oh, what a terrible thing to say. What do you think about that, Professor Mikitoba? I'm not sure that you should be labeling your best friend as lacking in common sense. Well, I thought it would be better than labeling her as a murderer. I don't know, young people today. If that's friendship, I don't understand it. Dude, he's bashing his hammer. Bashing's the wrong word, but you know what I'm saying. Careful, counsel. Lack of common sense can be a very dangerous thing. Look at me with this hammer. Imagine if I had no common sense. Oh dear. That recoiled on me rather badly. That's life, I'm afraid. A lesson everyone must learn. Hopefully you can see now that this is really basic medical knowledge. Being involved in medical research, Membami would certainly have been aware of it. Okay.
Hold it!
But the defendant had suddenly encountered somebody she knew lying on the ground, bleeding to death. The sight could have shocked her delicate sensibilities, causing her to remove the blade inadvertently. I really don't think inadvertent actions can explain this. The woman is a medical research assistant. I can't imagine she would behave so irrationally. Oh, but traditional rational behavior is a woman's prerogative, isn't it? Oh dear. You have a lot to learn about women. Dude, are we getting mansplained? Well, when we're actually a woman, that's hilarious. Only a small-minded man could have such bigoted views. Insane. Oh dear, perhaps I'm letting my male persona take hold a little too much. Well, have I managed to convey the basics now? That should cover the medical side of the argument. That's tough. This is true also. What do we even present on? Everything is true. Whatever the motive, it just isn't in Membami's nature to do something so awful. But she had both motive and opportunity. That's very hard to argue against. You don't know the defendant.
Attention!
And you, counsel, do not appear to know the law. Yes, evidence is the only way to convince the court of your argument, not feelings. With this fledgling to defend her, I would almost say I pity the accused. So do I. Inspector, you will reiterate your point about the defendant's motive, please. Yes, Miss Brett was in many ways a sworn enemy of Membami. Alright.
Hold it!
I don't know what we're gonna do here. Well, yes, that's true. Dr. Wilson recognized Membami's talent and offered her the position of assistant despite her being a woman. She was extremely grateful to him. Yes, the Englishman appears to have been a very broad-minded individual. Dr. Wilson had no time for outdated traditions. He met with opposition, of course, but he believed firmly in Membami's abilities. Clearly, the defendant was in the man's debt, which only serves to prove my point. This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in this testimony anywhere. Ray knew that withdrawing the knife from the wound would threaten Miss Brett's life further. I just can't think of any way to explain why she did it. Sato, it's at times like these when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals. Fundamentals? Evidence is what counts. I know evidence is what counts, but I don't know what's in the evidence that would help us here. Of course, but I've been through the court record dozens of times already. I think perhaps you're forgetting something, though. You needn't take the evidence at face value. You can and must examine it in greater detail, too. I realize it's your first time playing the role of lawyer in the courtroom, so if you need reminding of the rudiments, you need only ask. I'll do my very best to help. Examine the evidence in the court records and ideas. What should I do? I know what to do. Come to think of it, Kazuma and Ryu were always turning evidence over and over in their hands. Yes, I need to examine things in greater detail with A. Now it's going to let us see more details about the different pieces of evidence. That's what we need. By the look in your eyes, I see it's coming back to you. Go through the court record again and have a thorough look at everything. You may just find a clue. Yes, I'll do it straight away. Let's do it. Alright, here we go. So we already examined this fine. We're still examining this. Is there anything else to see in here? There's a lot of footprints, but that could also have been from the other people coming in here, right? Like after the murder happened and witnessed it and stuff. Okay. Oh, we can turn over the newspaper now. That's it. Look at that. This is a newspaper from Soseki. Seems to be an important article on the back page as well. Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. From Yume's medical research. Father, isn't that your lab? What the? Let me see that. The poison's been stolen. It's this morning's paper that Soseki gave us. Are you saying you didn't know? Embarrassing as that is for the head of the laboratory, I didn't. Not heard any such thing. Why on earth could the reporter have gleaned this information? Come to think of it, there's no article mentioning this story in our paper this morning, was there? The highly toxic poison we've been working on in the strictest confidence. I put Ray in charge of the project. Ray, she was managing it? What's written here is true. It means that she tried to hide the theft from me. Moreover, the details were leaked somehow. I don't believe it. We need to read this article very carefully. Okay. Look at the front side too of this picture. Raucous England returnees tell all. This is the interview with you and Soseki, isn't it, Father? Looks as though it was quite an exchange. Yes, he became a little over-animated when he was talking about his time in England. The photographer managed to capture the moment his hand karate chopped me on the neck. I do hope you weren't hurt. Alright. So now let's go back. Let's look at the article more. Following a lecture at Yume by Soseki on 11th August, it's come to light that a very disturbing incident took place. Deadly poison being secretly developed in the university's forensic laboratory was stolen. Even the smallest amount entering the body, either via the mouth or via a wound from a poison-laced blade, would prove fatal in minutes. Now, this is interesting because it seems like it's leading us to believe that she was killed by the stab wound plus poison on the stab. But she also had a drink with her and dropped the drink. Current methods cannot detect the newly developed chemical. The university would have to be consulted. Onset of symptoms occur in minutes, starting with impaired breathing and ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. Such symptoms would be suggestive of this toxin. It's apparently an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids, and rumors have been commissioned by the military. Pupils. That came up over here, didn't it? Pupil constriction. She was poisoned. But how does that help us, right? Let's look at the pen. How does her being poisoned help us when the signs of her being poisoned point to Ray, you know? Take off the pen's lid. Nothing appears obviously out of the ordinary here, does it? Now let's unscrew the barrel, shall we? Great. Everybody's dream, taking apart a purple pen. Alright, now what are we doing here? This must be the little reservoir that holds the ink. Yes, you feel it by drawing ink from the bottle up through the nib. Something wrong, Father? Except there doesn't actually appear to be any ink in there. That's all. The poison could have been distributed by the pen. That's sick. Oh yes, you're right, it's pretty much empty. Well, it could be on the verge of running out, I suppose. Great. Anything else to look at with this? I don't think so. Just so that we can look at the initials still. Our initials are very clearly engraved here. The fact that Miss Bright was clinging to this pen in her dying moments is very clearly a message too. Identify her killer, you mean? I don't think there could be any doubt that this is a key piece of evidence in this case. I think this is the murder weapon. Oh, the bottom of it too, look at that. There's some sort of emblem here. Look. But it isn't a Yume University one. Must belong to some other organization, I suppose. A business of some kind. That would seem to imply that the pin doesn't in fact belong to Ray. Yeah. Right. Now let me look. Let me look at this real quick. Man, I was really hoping there would be a newspaper article with those symbols on it. Okay. Okay. I think it's this one. I think it's this one, and the reason would be because it was poisoned.
Objection!
Yeah. Yeah. No, there is one possibility. One very good reason why the defendant might have decided to withdraw the knife from the victim's wound. What? Ah, the yokel not only has a poor grasp of the law, but is also a poor loser. Tell us then, what possibility you think you've identified? It's here, in this newspaper article. An article about deadly poison having been stolen from a laboratory at the Imperial Human University.
Objection!
The victim perished from a stab wound. Poison has no relevance in this case. But, Prosecutor Ouchie, you will let the defense speak. But a newspaper article, the court cannot rely on this kind of hearsay those wretched publications carry. Counsel for the defense. I am going to need some tangible basis for your claim. You will indicate to the court precisely what part of the newspaper article mentioned affirms your assertion. Yes, of course. Thank you. Ray would never have done something to further endanger Miss Brett's life without just cause. Two. Deadly in tiny quantities. The article reveals the following property about the poison in question. When the toxin enters the body on a knife laced with poison, it's rapidly absorbed and causes death in minutes. Are you suggesting? If the knife used to attack Miss Brett was laced with this very poison, it would explain why the defendant, Minbami, would have withdrawn the blade as soon as possible. Yes, the truth is, it was an attempt to stop the poison from entering the victim's body. There we go.
Objection!
This is complete and utter nonsense. Not at all. The defendant withdrew the knife blade from the victim's body not to accelerate the woman's demise, but to save her life, and the prosecution cannot deny the possibility. Have you not read the post-mortem report? Cause of death was hemorrhage. The word poison appears nowhere in the document. Well, that's because by acting quickly to remove the blade, the defendant prevented the poison from taking hold.
Objection!
Oh, please, this is clearly desperation, the weasel's last breaking of wind. Poison has nothing whatsoever to do with this case, as I believe the defense is well aware. And we already have our ace in the hole here, which is the eyes. We have no proof that the information in this wretched newspaper article is at all reliable anyway. In that situation, what the student should have done is wait for medical assistance to arrive. But instead, you claim she suspected poisoning and took the potentially lethal decision to remove the blade. She must have had a strong reason for her suspicions then, or the argument makes no sense. Exactly, well put, Inspector. On what grounds did she do it, yokel? The eyes. Why did Ray suspect the stolen poison was involved? You want grounds? I'll give you grounds. What? You can't possibly... From your expression, Counsel, it would appear those are not empty words. Yeah, we're cleaning house, baby. But naturally, as you stand in this courtroom as a lawyer, you must be aware that words alone, empty or not, are of no value in our modern justice system. The court demands evidence. Yes, Your Excellency. Well aware of that. I've seen it many times, from my place at his side in the Old Bailey. Alright.
Take
I would ask the court to refer to the notes section of the postmortem report, which reads, extreme meiosis pupil constriction was observed in the victim. Ah, clearly, being a yokel with no knowledge of forensic science, I have no idea, so please do tell me. Presumably, the fact that this condition of the victim was noted in the postmortem report means that it's an unusual symptom of death? Well, under normal circumstances, the pupils dilate when someone dies. There is extreme constriction instead. That's most certainly unusual, yes. What are you doing, you yokel detective? In the newspaper article, there's the following information about the stolen poison. Onset of symptoms occurs in minutes, ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. What? The defendant, upon seeing the victim stabbed in the back, happened to notice that the pupils of Miss Brett's eyes had constricted severely. Yes, as a medical research assistant, she would have suspected poison immediately, without doubt. Prosecutor Ouchie, I think you'll agree, this is a very compelling evidence. Yokel student, yokel professor! Great. I believe the defense has expertly demonstrated a credible reason for the defendant's actions. No. Yujin Mikotoba. Yes, Your Excellency. I believe you are best placed here to confirm or deny the veracity of the defense counsel's argument. You will tell the court the truth about the details reported in the newspaper, please. It pains me to have to admit it, but I'm afraid I don't know. You don't know? Toxin was kept under lock and key in my laboratory, certainly, but I was unaware of any theft. You mean to tell the court that the reports of this theft are unfounded? No, Your Excellency. Without returning to the laboratory to investigate myself, I couldn't say. Listen to the bumbling academic. Unaware of the theft of secret state research from his own workplace until he reads it in the newspaper. I take full responsibility for the incompetence of my supervision. Father. A pitiful situation for a university professor. You should have more control over your students, rather than allowing them off on killing sprees. Wolf. That's totally unfounded. Oh, who is speaking up here? Ray is here. None of this is Professor Mikotoba's fault. It's all my fault. Ray. Bauman, you stand accused here. Outbursts like this will not be tolerated. But it was me. I was the one who noticed that the poison we were developing had been stolen that day. What? So you knew? I'd been placed in charge of overseeing the project. It was the day that the professor and Soseki were interviewed together for the newspaper. That's when I noticed that some of the poison was missing. Just a tiny amount it was. Why didn't you let me know immediately? She wanted to solve it herself. I was scared. The whole project was supposed to be confidential, but some of the toxin had somehow been taken. So, I decided I'd try to get it back before anyone else found out. Because I had a very good idea who the thief was. Thief? You don't mean... Yes, of course. It was that dainty English woman. Miss Giselle Brett. That's why I decided to join the little group of people going to the seaside. Inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. But she just sat on a stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable. I knew it was you who stole the poison. Well, now whatever do you mean? And then, she suddenly got to her feet, before falling to her knees in front of me and then collapsing on the floor. That's when I saw the knife in her back. Couldn't understand what had just happened. And then, a moment later, I was seized with fear. The pupils of her eyes they'd shrunk to tiny pinpoints. I don't believe it. In other words, you realized that the victim was suffering the effects of the stolen poison. My mind started racing. I hadn't seen anything past Miss Brett's lips whilst I'd been with her, which left only one possible way for the poison to have entered her body. on the blade of the knife in her back. And that train of thought was what spurred you to withdraw the blade. Yes, the amount that entered her bloodstream was small enough she might still have a chance. That's what I hoped. Really, I'm so sorry for staying silent all this time. This is a great spot here. Your attempt to hide the truth of what happened is not something that can be overlooked. However, I have duly noted the courage with which you confess in the end. Thank you, Your Excellency. It's barely perceptible, but I do think the balance has shifted a little here in this courtroom now.
Objection!
Oh no. Your Excellency, do not be deceived. The victim just collapsed before your eyes, you say? Well, Minbami, if that is the case, perhaps you could explain how Miss Brett came to be stabbed. Well, you have no answer because the simple truth is that you stabbed the victim motivated by revenge.
Objection!
You have no conclusive evidence to prove that assertion, do you? Oh, I have evidence, and it's very much conclusive. Probably talking about the pen again. What's the prosecution counsel up to? It was brief, but he hesitated for a moment there. I'm almost sure of it. You will produce the aforementioned evidence at once, Prosecutor Ouchie. Perhaps some praise is due, young yokel student. What? I'd imagine there would be no need for me to submit this evidence. But you brought this on yourself. How did they get that photo? What the? Could a more damning shot exist? The cruelty in the air on that beach is almost palpable. I mean, she could easily be trying to take it out right there. Why would you not open with that evidence? That's crazy. This evidence, more than any other, reveals the true extent of the accused murderer's nature. For it shows a precise moment that Minbami plunged her dagger into the victim's back. No, that's not true. No. I don't believe it. Oh no. Oh no. Order, order, order. Counsel for the defense, was it you who was responsible for that shrill scream that just pierced my courtroom? Perhaps his voice has yet to break. These yokels are slow-minded, slow to mature. I wonder if it's actually going to come out that who we really are. I'll show you who's slow to mature. Careful now, Susato is starting to show her face here. It is often said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and here we have ample proof. The court will accept this extremely cogent photographic print as evidence. Great, great. Can't believe he's had a photograph like that up his sleeve this entire time. Such a stark image, I'm genuinely lost for words. Wait a minute, I don't understand. How did you... I mean, who took that photograph? We know who took the photograph. The actual murderer took the photograph, Soseke's frickin' assistant guy.
Objection!
That's of no importance here. Stop trying to divert attention. Oh,
Objection!
that's an absurd thing to say. It's crucially important. Whoever took this photographic print was a witness to Miss Brett's death. The court must be allowed to hear this person's testimony. I will uphold the defense's demand. The prosecution will reveal the identity of the person responsible for taking this photograph at once. This is where we get access to the true murderer. Well, I'm afraid I can't do that. Pardon? You see, this print arrived at the Imperial Police Bureau headquarters by express post yesterday. There was nothing to indicate the sender's name or address. The provenance of the print is unknown. Goodness. We just understand then, counsel, that in full knowledge of the fact that this photograph has the murkiest of origins, you nevertheless believe it fit for submission as evidence in the Supreme Court? When you first produced that print before, I noticed that you hesitated for a brief moment, because you knew that it wasn't completely reliable evidence, didn't you? Silence, you yokel student, blabbering professor. What matters is the blatant truth that this print so eloquently expresses. The defendant has already admitted to pulling the blade from the wound. Clearly this isn't the moment that the knife was plunged into the victim's back, but the moment it was withdrawn? Don't waste this court's time with your ramblings. Indeed, without knowledge of who produced this print, we have no means of verifying the claim. The scene it captures is without doubt the most compelling evidence presented to the court. If the defense is unable to shed any further light on the matter, I believe the conclusion is clear. Oh no. Lusato, this is the time for you to fight. What you've established so far is true, then there can be no doubt. This photographic print shows the moment that Ray withdrew the blade from the victim. Yes, we just need to prove that somehow. You'll have plenty of time to rue your defeat on the slow train back to your provinces. And to rue the day you came up against Takeuchi in court of law. I can't determine who took this photograph, then the trial is going to come to an end. There must be a clue somewhere. There must be some way of working out who took it. Well, counsel? Your Excellency? I know who did it. But I think it wants to say we don't know. This isn't about whether I can or can't come up with the answer now. I simply have to. The identity of the person who took this dramatic photographic print is, I assure you, something the defense can and will reveal. What? No, you can't possibly. But, as you so boldly claim that you can, please, do enlighten us. Fortunately, I'm unable to present a name. How utterly underwhelming. Did you really believe you could? However, I am able to present evidence. The defense has a piece of evidence that reveals important details about the photographer's identity. What? Very well then, counsel. Present your proof to the court. Oh boy. Oh boy. I feel like it's gonna be this. Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna go with that.
Take that!
Newspaper again? Raucous England attorneys tell all. It's not the headline that's relevant here, Your Excellency. It's the photograph. If you look at it closely, you'll notice that there are some white lines on the right-hand side. Oh, does it match the same as... Look at that. I didn't even notice that. That's great. Ah, what of it? A shadow of some kind, presumably, from the branches of a tree or the like? There are no trees growing inside my laboratory at the university, I can assure you. Now, if you look closely at this photograph... Good gracious. That's right. Yes, exactly the same pattern of lines is present on this photograph, too.
Objection!
Well, that tells us nothing. Yes, it's a shadow of some kind, definitely, from the branches of a tree. There wouldn't be any trees growing inside a hut at the beach, council. What's quite remarkable about it is that the two patterns are absolutely identical. How could such an extraordinary similarity have transpired? Yeah, same camera. Obviously, it must be due to a problem with the camera used to take the photographs. With the photographic device? Yes, we can confidently say that the camera lens must be scratched, and that the scratch lens causes unwanted lines to appear on every print taken with the device. In short, the two photographs under consideration here were taken with the same camera. Yeah, here he's gonna explode. There must be hundreds of such camera devices here in the capital. It would be utterly impossible to identify the owner of this particular one. And they probably know who took the picture. I think you're forgetting, Prosecutor Ouchi, that one of the photographs featured in a newspaper article. A newspaper? That's right. The author of that article is the mystery witness to this crime. What? Yeah. There we go. Is it the author? Oh, I see why you were called a raucous England returning. Now, this is actually this is where we're going to stop today. This is a great place to stop right before we hear what Soseki has to say about this, and presumably soon before we see his photographer writer guy, who is definitely the murderer, and we hear their testimonies and cross-examine them. Right? That's definitely coming up. I feel like, um, man, I feel like I clocked this case so fast of what actually happened, and it feels great. I mean, I could be wrong, and I could look really foolish right now, but I feel like I'm right. But that's all I got today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you take care of yourselves. Make sure you take care of others. And I'll see you next time. Peace out.